All right, here's another really easy section for you guys. We're going to look at the sum and product of roots. So what that means is if you have two roots of a quadratic equation, and we're going to designate them R1 and R2, you could take the sum of those two numbers, those two roots, and it will always be equal to negative b over a. And you could take the product of those two numbers, and it's always going to be equal to c over a. And if you don't believe me, you can go through and take your roots that you get from the quadratic formula and add them together and multiply them together and simplify, and you should see that you get these two fractions. So if you don't believe me, go for it. You can figure it out yourself. I'm not going to show that here. Okay, so these two formulas are going to be very helpful. Because a lot of times we don't necessarily want to figure out what the actual roots are, but we do want to know what the sum of those roots is, or we want to know what the product of the roots is. Okay, so using these formulas can be very helpful. So you'll see how simple this is. Find the sum and product of the roots for the first example. So we're just plugging in negative b over a to figure out the sum. So 4 over 2, which is 2. And then c over a to get your product, which is negative 3 over 2. And you're done. Simple, easy. We like that. Okay, now this next problem, they're actually giving you the sum and the product, and you have to work backwards to come up with the quadratic equation. Well, first of all, let's set each of these numbers equal to their appropriate formula, negative b over a and c over a. Okay, and you can really easily just read off, looking at this as a ratio, that a is going to be 2 and b is going to be 5. C is not necessarily going to be negative 6 because the a down here is 1 and we already established that the a is 2. So that's actually easy to work with. Once we've figured out that a is 2 and b is 5, if we come over here and replace this a with the 2 that we already know, so c over 2 is equal to negative 6, that means that c is going to be equal to negative 12. And once you have those three numbers, you just plug them in and there you go. You've got your equation. Pretty simple, right? Well, there's an even faster way that we could do this. So let's take our equation that we have here, and what if I were to divide through by a? So if I divide everything through by 2, what do I get? Well, this is what it looks like. And hopefully you guys are looking at this and you're seeing these numbers here for b and c, and they look really, really familiar because they're very similar to these numbers that they just gave us. In fact, this right here is c, and this is almost exactly the same as that. It's just different by a negative sign. So what that tells us is that this value right here is the opposite of the sum. So if they tell you the sum, just take the opposite sign and plug it in. And that this value is exactly the product. There you go. So if they tell you what the sum and the product are, you just plug it in right here and you're done. Just don't forget to write your equal to 0. Otherwise it's not an equation, it's just an expression. If they ask you to not have any fractions, so if they want all of a, b, and c to be integers, it's really easy to just take this denominator and multiply through by 2, and then you're back up here at this answer. So either way, just watch out for how they ask you to leave your answer. There you go. As promised, a pretty simple section.